Hey everybody, welcome to the weekend vid. We're gonna start with the indexes. You're gonna see SPY nowhere near reversing on the week so far. You'll see at this point the broad information. It's gonna look something like this. We are currently into expansion of the monthly triangle we identified 3 months ago off the monthly breaks down in here, and up and away they are still going. You'll see we had a very nice triangle out this past week. So you'll see the day, lower low, hammer, where are you going? Up there, right? Really good stuff. And that's why we wait for the triangle out, because this is going to be your daily triangle. That hammer tells us about it. We also saw a pretty neat thing with the 60s. If we get this extended hours off, you'll see you also had the 60 hammer after a triangle out to time the bottom even better. So pretty cool stuff there. If we go to the Dow Jones, hammer for a rev-strat week. So SPY's going up on the week. Dow Jones sets up a hammer week. You'll see on the day, we do have this that we're sitting in at this point, so we'll have to get out of that. But if you can, we can rev-strat the week to the upside, and quarterly hammer is in force, right? So that's something we definitely want to know about, which tells us industrials. And on that side of things, you know, the big beautiful bill pass, a lot of industrial stuff can be a part of that. If we go to IWM, you'll see also 2 down in green on the week. You'll see again, similar to the Dow Jones, this daily triangle may kick in to start the week. Looks something along the lines of this. You could also draw furtherly to the left. So you have the major try, and this would be your sub try to that major try. So we'll see if that kicks in to start the week or not. But, you know, if it does go 2 day down, you got to be coming 2 on the week or you're stuck. If we go to the Qs, it's going to be one of the stronger ones because tech, and that's just how it does. 3-2 to the upside so far this quarter. Now, if it were to fail, right, you'd have to be below this 549.89. So anyone calling for a market top, unless it's below that, you know not to listen to them, which is a good thing. So if we go to the day, daily triangle, you see the same thing, slight lower low. How many pennies was that? 7 cents. So here it is, slightly lower, and then the higher highs up into here. So here's the triangle you're working with. And if we go to like a 60-minute basis, maybe a little bit more obvious for you guys here. So how are we going to get out of this is the question. Up at all-time highs, the Qs. This tells us, you know, for now we're still just bullish, and therefore we're going to look for upside setups. And with the VIX still being pretty dang low and looking to go lower with a 3-2-2 week to the downside, you know, looking for gappers, looking for long red and green bars. So we'll make sure we do that on the scans. So let's dive into the scanner. So we're gonna start with everyone's favorite, right? The 2 down in green, the 2 up in reds. And we'll start by jumping to today. And one thing you'll note with the scanner here is you'll see it's red here. What that says is that it's disconnected. So we can click it, it'll reconnect if you're recently disconnected. But in this case, I'm gonna have to refresh the page here. So here we are. Set up on the week. Got about 172 down in greens, which is a good thing. And we can start from the top. And I want to do something we just recently added, which is market cap right down here. Hopefully they can change the organization, or I guess I can do that. Cool. Put it up in here. But it looks like with a lot of the ETFs, we do not have market cap data, which is a shame. We'll have to add that in. Let's start then with price just to see who's up there. So Goldman Sachs and financials, Carvana, Adobe, some bigger names, WDay, Snow, PANW, which is Palo Alto. That's something I want to know about. Team, GoDaddy, Reddit, DDOG. So a lot of tech names, right? We're seeing that right off the bat, which tech is strong. So that's something we want to know about. There's also a few healthcares in there, but a lot of tech. So that's going to be a focus for us. If we then start diving into it, we'll see tech went 3 on the week. So with the outside week of tech, it's going to be a broadening formation. So we want to make sure we draw right to left, like a so. You'll see the same thing, they had the hammer, except they were stronger, not making new lows. So up they went. If we go to PANW, 3, 2 down in green, and we'll get our very beautiful notepad here, which has a million lines in it so far, you'd say, you know, the gist is market is still going up. DIA 1, 2 down green setup. If we go to IBM, 2 down green setup. SPY and QQQ. Still strong, which tells you tech and semis. And then Dow Jones being setting up that week tells us industrials. And we'll go from there. So start with the 2 down in green. We will have PANW on there, and we'll move this off the screen now. You'll see Adobe in there as well. It's pretty weak. Notice it's a 2 down month this month. So not as much evidence for this to go up. However, if this went 2 day to the downside, could be a good bearish name. We'll keep that on the bearish side of things. Goldman Sachs, you'll see the hammer counter shooter day. It's 2 up month. Went 2 down last week. So this hammer counter shooter would trigger the 2 week up with the financials, which also set up the week in there. So I have XLF, which tells us Goldman Sachs. And then, you know, whenever you see a name like that, you always just go to the rest of them. Morgan Stanley. Hammer week as well. We go to JPM. Sorry, I had a brain fart. Inside week. So we will add that as well. Goldman Sachs, we already got. Wells Fargo. Also, could become a rev-strat, be soft rev-strat. Citigroup. You see it was actually inside week to the upside last week after earnings. And they are gunning. If we look up and left on this one, they've been higher, so maybe they do end up coming back, but we'll see. Anyways, we could say relative strength. And if we go to insurers, Allstate is 2 down in green week, no daily setups, Progressive. Also 2 down in green, right at a big reclaim level. So we can add in Progressive, Allstate, and we'll see if any of those kick in. If we go to, let's see, any other financial names just sorted from the top. NTRS shows up in there. I'm not sure if it's a rev-strat. It is not. Or actually, wait. Yep, it is a rev-strat, so it'll be rev-strat week. And it is 2 down in green. And that tells me again to take a look at is it NVTS? Yeah. So NVTS, I saw some chatter recently across the YouTube. Some people talking about this one as a big semiconductor play potentially. At this point, outside week, so we'll have it on the outside week list. But that ticker reminded me of it, so we'll throw it up in there. Put a star next to it as well. Still an inside month, so maybe it's a next month name. However, you know, obviously they've got some buyers in here, so we'll see what shows up there. Outside of that, in the financials, Upstart, LMND. So Upstart's actually a 2-2 quarter name we like. So Upstart, I'll throw up a star next to it. And that tells you also to take a look at firm. Yeah. And this is why knowing the relationships is pretty good, because once you start seeing Upstart pop up, you already know a firm's going to be there. And if it isn't there, which in this case, looking at the list, it's not, it also helps you not miss correlated assets. So a firm's also a 3-2-2 setting up in there. And we'll put some stars next to those. I like the look of those guys with the simultaneous break in financials. All right. And sorry I'm being quiet. I'm adding in because I saw a stock that reminded me of the uranium sector. Uranium is also going to be something we're going to continue watching the rest of the week, or the rest of the month and quarter, because 3-2 quarter URA. If we look up and left, this has been a name I've loved and really liked ever since I started trading the strat. It was actually down in here, April of 2020. And let me just go and show you guys that. But for those of you guys who haven't followed us for a while or following me for a while, this is back in 2021. So long time ago. But you'll see this monthly broadening formation in here. And we continue to track that. This is a 30 broadening formation, 3-day chart. Let's see. We continued to track this through 2021. You'll see it gets to the top of it. The question was, do we rocket or do we stall once we got to the top of that big broadening formation? And in this case, you'll see they rocketed getting out of this range. So uranium's just been a cool one, following it ever since I started the strat. This is something I've always liked, and it's continuing to get better. It's really cool to see it, 4 years later and counting, still going. So really cool stuff. But anyways, let's keep going. If we get back to the scanner here, we will see. I know a lot of people like watching LMND. It's not my cup of tea normally, but did we get a triangle out? Just shy. However, that does give you a hint, probably new highs in LMND. They do have earnings coming up. So what you could do is earnings play. Grabbing those, like $45 calls, $44 calls. And if it works out, even with the high IV prior to earnings, you might be able to make like a $3 or $4 winning trade in here. And then from that, you can decide to hold into earnings, or you can take your call profits, leave some of those open, and buy puts with the profits. You can try both sides of the range. Obviously on earnings, maybe it's not the craziest, most volatile name, but it's in financials, and that's been radically changing with AI. So pretty cool trade setup we could go after there. I'll put a star next to it. Earnings play, looking at the 44 call, 45 call to create a winning position prior to ER. All right. Now let's get out of the financial space and go to all categories. In the tech team. And I heard through the grapevine, there might be another pandemic type of scare coming. So one thing I was thinking about was, regardless of if it's true or not, the names like Zoom, some of the vaccine guys could just see a really crazy pop overnight or, over a couple days into August, is what people are saying. So something I want to keep in mind, not, trying to tell the future or anything, but that could be something interesting. So I'll just keep that in mind. Therefore, Team Viewer could be one of those guys. And you'll see the 3-2-2 week. So you might be able to get some winning position in there first, and then maybe there's news, maybe there's not. But I do like that as well. And is it Team Viewer or is it Team? No, it's Team something else. If we go to Zoom, inside week, which is interesting. If we go to NVAX, also inside week, which is interesting. Pfizer's going down last week, so docu for a pandemic idea. See, I don't think it's actually going to be one. I think there's just something going around, and there's just been people talking about it, saying that it might cause a little bit of a scare, but I don't think it's be anything. And that's some guys in the chat Let's take a look. Snow also in the tech. So PANW, Snow. We have stars next to PANW because they're part of the big AI guys, and AI is definitely something we want to continue trading for the next couple of years as it starts to broaden. Reddit is a 2-2 quarter name, has a 2-2 week setting up. So a lot of tech names up at the top of the list, and we can give our focus there. We got a DDOG, also a 2-2 quarter name setting up the week. I just want to double check on the tech names, see if I can add that information in there. PANW, so this would be to trigger quarter. Domino, week 2 quarter. Snow would be just to trigger 3-2 continuation quarter, but nonetheless. Then Upstart, this confirms quarter. So just there, we could just watch those guys this coming week. However, we like to be thorough, so we're going to go through some more of this and just see what's up. Flops. We do see the Staples ETF in there, so maybe rev-strat week or maybe 2-2 day on Monday brings them back in. But what, like Coca-Cola, meh. Like obvious stuff. Stir, eh. All right. Looks like we've got through most of, what's going to show up in there as far as things that are interesting to us. We will see, cruise lines, which is part of your industrials. CCL, this is also part of your quarterly list. Cruises, so we'll have CCL. Or NCLH, not RCLH, what am I doing? Norwegian Cruise Lines, which is my pick, is still going up, although maybe a 2-2 PMG day if they were to weaken things up on Monday. CCL, we already got it. RCL. RCL's 3-2 quarter, still just going up. It's just CCL in there, which does make it a little less interesting, although it confirms other cruise lines. I think I'm just going to remove it so we don't have to deal with more names on the list. But that covers your 2 Downing Greens. Now we're going to take a look at our 2-up and red setups. We got about 75 names there. It looks like gold, McDonald's. There's a few tech names, which is interesting. AMAT. And I really prefer AMAT for triangle layout. So looking at these levels down and left, I would prefer take them down, bring them back through something like this. So let me just get that stuff drawn out in here. Like so. McDonald's. Wow, 2-up by 5 pennies, but it'd be 3-2-2, trying to time a break on a 2-week chart here. Which actually we're not going to be able to see. Maybe a 10-day chart will show it better. Yeah, so you can see inside bar stuck and then timing the rev-strat of that to go down into here with the McDonald's weekly 3-2-2. And that'd be, if Staples do stay a little weaker, that tends to move with those guys. We go to Bosco. That one's getting sold off still. 3-2 monther to the downside. I'm just checking these because they tend to move together. Targets. Double inside month and up at this point, bottom of this broadening formation. So maybe they do see a comeback after getting out of this stuff. But let's see. CSGP. I'm not sure what these guys do. Corsair. Okay, that makes more sense. They've been increasing their earnings every quarter, so they'd have to miss this one that's coming up next week. You know, maybe I'd say more likely that they're going to expand the upside on that earnings. But, you know, nonetheless, they'll have earnings coming up here Tuesday, so that will be on the gap list. And if they are gapping down, right, on Corsair, you know, maybe all these guys down 77.85 and it starts to really fall apart. Everyone else back down in here, 68.23. Now, obviously, if their earnings are still going up like this, maybe it'd be a good buy. If we do see that. We'll see BitB, which tells you Bitcoin probably has a 2 up and red week as well. All right. A lot of, you know, meh stuff. It looks like some gold miners might have some setups as well, which we will take a look at. So gold, we'll see what's been chopping a while. But within the inside bar broadening formation, you're going to see, right, mother bar, inside bar, starts the new broadening formation. So if they tick up and they tick down, pivot machine gun could take a lot of this stuff out, which would be interesting. I'm not sure what may cause that if we got any news next week to do it. But that is something we can be on the watch for. We're always watching those guys, so we'll see if silver wants to do similar as well. But GDX, this is from last week's vid. On Monday night, we said this. Monday, shooter, boom. We actually didn't have the video done Monday, so we did it in the morning, but 2, 1, 2, and they took out most of your pivot targets. Now maybe another 2, 2 reversal. You'll see this will occur about 2% lower, which could get it going even further. JNUG is going to be similar, and you'll see we have the 2, 2 reclaiming previous highs to break out the mother bar, right? Stuck, and then new lows. So we will keep an eye on those guys. That's really about it as far as things that are interesting in here. Maybe you could short Misty. A lot of people are buying that one for dividends. So if Bitcoin does begin to go down at all after its big rally, that might fall apart a little bit. But with the Bitcoiners MicroStrategy, that's a good one. So we'll throw that in there. These tend to not move or not really care as much about the stock market. So if Bitcoin's down, maybe this one starts dropping while the market goes up. And we'll put that on there. Since it's screaming at us to look at Bitcoin, we'll take a look. So you'll see to start the recent rally on Bitcoin, it was a 2-1-2 reversal, 2-2. Now 2 up red shooter. So, you know, everyone's trying to buy Bitcoin up in here. Ideally, you wouldn't buy it up in here. You can hold it. But if that shooter week starts kicking in at all to the downside, maybe they start bringing them back in a little bit, even if it's just some, you know, shorter term triangle out of these guys. If we get a ripple, different story. Nowhere near reversing, right? And this is one we've been extremely vocal about. So here's your triangle on the week. We talk about this reclaim down in here. On Twitter, we did for sure. We talk about this one as well. Definitely on Twitter. So something we've been watching on Twitter for a while. You'll see this inside week 3, or actually 2-1-2 reversal 2 takes everyone out all the way to the upside. And it's beautiful because not only is this a 2-2 reversal quarter from our quarterly video, which is not in this file, sadly, but, and actually it might be. It looks like I may have mentioned it on the quarter vid, but I did not put it in the list. However, this 2-2 quarter is also 3-2 year. So if you don't know what those do, you know, if we go to Tesla, this was back in 2020. you'll see 19 was an outside year, right? Made new lows by $4, made new highs by $3. That shows aggression. So when a 3 goes 2 and you still got time on it, this is 700%, topping out at 1,300%. So when we know that, right, this does get me a little excited, right? Especially above 2.9. If you stay up there, I'm pretty excited about what XRP is going to do for the next 5 months. That's definitely something we want to keep our eyes on and continue to look for. And that being said, stronger than Bitcoin. So maybe we do see some pullback in here, but it's inside week. So I'm not touching it. And you'll see they're chopping them up. If we get back to the charts here. Do see some, GD in there, which is going to be part of your industrials / your defense DFEN sector. Meh, not that interested in it. You will have some pivot machine guns in there, but that's about it. And the last thing I can say is biotechs have 2 up in red in here. PMG, maybe that starts kicking in. They've been chopping for a while. So they went, sideways, still sideways. So not as interesting as other things, but that is what we see 2 up in red. Now let's check the 1-1s, see what we got there, if any. Intel. And of course, there it is. So Illumina. LMN double inside week. It is red this year, inside year down. 2 up quarter conflicted with the year. It is a 2 up month, confirming the quarter, but double inside week, which could negate the month back to confirming the year to the downside. And if we look left, if we have yearly downtrend, right, if they're going to keep this going, it's slight higher highs in here, lower lows, slight higher highs in here, and then potentially broadening formation again. We do have earnings coming up. So part of earnings, maybe we can make a winner there. It could be another earnings play. And you can see on earnings, they did miss their last one. So maybe that's something that follows through. Right? ELFs, a lot of nothing. So that's about it. STX would be the only other one in here. In the technologies, 3-2 quarter. So you got aggression. Now, how far does that expansion go? And you got the double inside week, so we'll throw it in there. You can also take a look at the 3s last week and just see what we got. MRVL will be a 3 on the week from last week, and this is something I'm looking for follow through. And I will add in there, AMD is one that I've got my sights on, mostly because we've already seen NVIDIA is still going up, and AMD, is like second runner up to NVIDIA. So I would not be surprised in a bullish market where AI, semis, uranium type stuff is going. AMD, why would it not go to all-time highs, right? It's still a company, and you could see that a slight cut on earnings, but they're still a $7 billion company. They're not doing too bad, at least as far as earnings are concerned. You can see they're not as much as NVIDIA, but I believe with the new infrastructure bill that's coming out, that's not really going to matter, right? NVIDIA's going to be the leader for sure, but AMD, the laggard, just as much evidence. So I'll have that in there. With MRVL, which we bought last week for follow through. We'll also see LRCX in the tech / chip names. with the hammer week. 3-2 quarter, again, going for the outside year, so chips are going back for it. Wow. Looks like GAWN does not trade anymore. That's interesting, but it's still showing up. Just looking at some of these outside week CEG and the utilities. Could be a good sploder, 322 in utilities. That is a part of the uraniums. So that being said, we did see utilities last week, 3-2 expansion, which tells you 3-2 expansion quarter as well, 2 up year. So there's a chance utilities starts kicking this thing into triangle expando, similar to what uraniums are doing. And that would make sense. With AI, you're going to have a lot more demand for energies overall. So, not only is tech just bullish, tech's bullish for the rest of the market, which is a cool thing. Outside of that, there's a few real estates. Baidu, outside week shooter with a rev-strat day setting up to rev-strat the month. Oh, yeah. This reminds me of our trades from Monday, for those that were in the Discord, with the inside week UPS, which, didn't do as much, but it was weak while the market was going up, which is rev-stratting the month and still hasn't done it yet. So we're still waiting for that to happen. But it's rev-stratting the month and it has full time frame continuity with the year or two down. So pretty good short name, even if the market's not cooperating. We could see these guys, UPS inside day. FedEx went 2 down. We could see these guys triangle out Monday, bring them back into the downside. But Baidu and the China names, I don't know if there's going to be some news or something coming out, but they don't look too good either. And that Baidu setup reminds me of those guys. But looks like that's about all we're going to get. The last thing we could do is take a look at some daily setups going into tomorrow, and we can then look at how green or red they are on the week and month. And it doesn't look like we got a lot of those daily setups here. Let me double check. Team and now really the only ones. So not a lot going on there. Now is an inside week, so I'll add that to the list. Specifically into the tech names. But that's about it. There's a lot of names on the 2 up in red day list, so I'm going to take that. I'm going to scan the monthly. See who's the most red this month with those daily setups. Costco is. So Costco, you got some natural sellers in there. While the market's going up, you see this has not reversed for many, many quarters. It's a 3-2 month to the downside. Now, when I'm looking at this, I really don't see this actually going down into here. However, you will have a broadening formation. Looks like this. So you can see within, you can see it within here. You can also see it potentially kicking down into these guys. So we'll have to see, but that's the weakest one we have this month. Along with Progressive, which is inside quarter down, maybe a rev-strat day. And then Adobe, which I already have on the daily list as far as the weekend vid's concerned. So a few of those guys in there. And that's going to end off the weekend vid. So those of you guys that are skipping to the end, what you will see is the gist is, most things still going up. You got some bullish steps in the industrials. We did have some weakness. UPS and FedEx last week. IBM is 2 down set up with Dow Jones. SPY and Qs are still going up. AMD, Marvell, these are some ones I'm watching in the semis. And then NVIDIA, of course. You can also throw AMAT in there for potentially daily broadening formation back to the upside if we can tick down Monday. Outside of that, 2 down in green weeks, financial sector, which tells you GS, NTRS, which are rev-strats. And then you got a lot of other banks and whatnot that are setting up. So we'll see what comes of it. However, I really like Upstart and Affirm, which are in the financials as well. These have quarterly signals. They are confirming their quarter with weekly setups. You also have PANW, week to trigger the quarter. And that's something I want to know about in the tech. There'll be Snow setting up the week, Reddit setting up the week to confirm the quarter. And these are all reversals. DDOG with PANW setting up to confirm the quarter as well. So we like those guys. All the semis are here. LMND could be an earnings play. You got some weekly setups to maybe create a call position before earnings, or at least make some money there. And then you can play both sides, the call side, the put side, whatever you want to do your research, see what you got going on there. But I believe it's Tuesday. Team will be a good 3-2-2 name going into next week. And then 2 up in red, we'll see McDonald's 3-2-2 week setting up to the downside potentially. And then MicroStrategy also setting up a PMG to the downside with all the Bitcoin names, specifically just Bitcoin, looking like they want to give some back. XRP is still strong. We have double inside weeks here. LMN earnings play would be ideally a downside name with the yearly to the downside and some potential outside month/quarter. And then STX is 3-2 quarter up with a double inside week. Now it's going to be inside week in the tech. A decent leader in there as well. 3 2s, so expansion, CEG, which is your uranium/utility companies, of which utilities we can add in here. It's simultaneous breaking utilities, including uranium. In uraniums, you'll see all these guys had a fast 3-2 up to start the quarter. Outside of that, you might have some bearish daily setups in Adobe to the downside if things are weak on Monday. And then for 3-2s, NVTS can be another one that we add in here. And before I miss it, Baidu. Baidu has a rev-strat day into a 3-2 week expansion shooter to the downside, which could rev-strat the month. So on the downside, these would be, a few of your names here that we could look for. And, that covers it. Week in review last week, BBAI was one of them that we were very interested in. So we'll just add that in here. But that is all I've got. So we got a really long weekend vid, but hope you guys enjoyed, and adios.